For this example of the one sample students test, we're going to use the data from the World Happiness Report, World Happiness Report, the World Happiness Report of the United Nations. One of the variables or one of the questions that are reported is something that they call the life ladder. So the life ladder is a score of happiness or satisfaction in life. So essentially, and it's measured between 0 and 10. So they ask the people how happy they are. If they are very happy, they're gonna say that their life is a 10. And if they are pretty unhappy, they're gonna say that their life is 0. So 10 is that the world that the life of these people it's amazing, that it cannot be better. And 0 means exactly the opposite, that their life is horrible and it cannot be worse. So we might come with some series of hypotheses. For example, we might have someone that is pessimistic, a pessimistic person, and we might have someone that is an optimistic person. So the pessimistic person might say that on average, people are going to say that the happiness is around 4.5. And the optimistic might say that maybe the average is around 7.5. And there might be someone in the middle that says that the average maybe it's around 5.5. Okay. There are also other hypotheses that we might come. For example, we might come with a hypothesis that mu is larger or equal than 5. So someone might say, I don't know what is the value of mu, but I think that it is larger or equal than 5. And someone else might say, I don't know what is the value of mu, but I think that it is less or equal than 7, to say something. And over here appears then the alternative hypothesis. So the alternative hypothesis in this case is that then mu is less than 5. And over here, the alternative hypothesis, typically denoted by 1, it could be that mu is larger than 5. Okay. In the previous hypothesis, that means that the alternative hypothesis, which is denoted by H1, will be that mu is not 4.5, that mu is not 4.5, or that mu is not 7.5. So let's test this hypothesis. To do that, we're going to use our tool over here. So we start by loading our data. So we take our data set and drop it over here. Okay. So we have over here the data of this report. And let me use just the last year. So let me reclassify the year as categorical and let me consider just, let me consider just the last year of this report. So I'm going to use just the data of the year 2023. So you can see over here, this is the variable that we are looking for, life ladder, and here are different countries. So we come to hypothesis testing, and we want to test the life ladder, and we're gonna use the one sample students to test. So we might start with the pessimistic over here, which is saying that is 4.5. So the alternative is that it is not 4.5, which is said that it is two-sided because not being 4.5 means that it is more than 0.45 or less than 4.5. That is why it is called two-sided over here in the hypothesis. So we run the hypothesis and we can see that this could be the distribution under the null hypothesis. And this is the value of the mean. This is what we observed in our sample. And this is the bootstrap distribution of the sample. So this is the most likely distribution that we have, and this is the distribution under H0. So you can see that it's pretty unlikely in this case, which it's over here summarizing the p-value that is 0. So over here, the p-value, we might report the p-value in this case is 0, which means that this hypothesis is not possible at all. We might also come with the optimistic that says that the happiness is around 7.5. So we run it, and again, this could be the distribution of the happiness, of the average happiness if the null hypothesis were true. That is, if the happiness were centered in 7.5, which again is pretty unlikely. So the p-value over here is 0. So the p-value that is reported over there is 0, which means that this hypothesis is unlikely and we should reject it. Finally, we might consider the person that is not that pessimistic and is not that optimistic. So it says that the average, this person think that could be around 5.5. And if we run it, we can see now that this distribution under the null hypothesis, the gray one, if we compare it with the purple, it is more likely. It is quite similar. So in this scenario, the p-value is around 0.0215, which is not small. So in this case, we cannot reject this hypothesis. So we can work as if this hypothesis were true. For example, that means that the hypothesis that the average is 5.5 could be a realistic one. Now we can also come to these other two hypotheses. So we can come with a hypothesis that mu is greater or equal than 5. So that means that the alternative hypothesis is that mu is less than 5. So we select over here less, and we run it, and in this case you see that the p-value is 1. So the p-value in this case is 1, which is translated as that this hypothesis is likely, that we cannot reject this hypothesis. And also in the case that we come with a hypothesis that mu is less or equal than 7. So the alternative is that mu is greater than 7. So we select it, and we can see that the p-value is around 1. So we cannot reject this hypothesis. So that means that we have evidence that the average happiness of the world is not 4.5. We have overwhelming evidence against that hypothesis. We have overwhelming evidence against the hypothesis that on average the happiness is 7.5. But we do not have evidence against the hypothesis that it is 5.5. That means that saying that the average is 5.5 is likely. And we also do not have evidence against of the hypothesis that mu is less equal to 5, or that mu is less or is less or equal to 7. So once again, it's when we have a sample that comes from a normal distribution and we want to test a hypothesis of the value of the mean that we use the one sample students t-test.